he says in verse 6, he says, I wondered with great amazement. So the angel said to me, why do you wonder? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. So again, in the vision, you have one of the Malachim, who also had the spirit of Yahushua HaMashiach, or the testimony, which is the spirit of prophecy, right? Because I'm going to break this down to you, what he's talking about. Listen to what he says here. Verse 8, the beast that you saw was and is not, and is about to come up out of the abyss and to go into destruction. Those who dwell on the earth, and listen to this, and whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will marvel when they see that the beast was and is not and shall be present. Okay, now a couple passages I wanted to touch on just to substantiate this book of life. So Dawid spoke about the book of life, see? Precept to precept, line to line, a little here, a little there. In Tehillim, which is Psalms chapter 69, verse 28. He said, let them be blotted out of the book of life and not be written with the righteous. Implying who was in the book of life? The righteous, who would be classified as the seed of Elohim. Now in Luke chapter 10, those who may not be familiar with it, this is where Messiah chose an additional 70 to represent him. Now he sent them out 2 by 2, and at this point, this is when they returned. Listen to what it says. Verse 17. The 70 returned with joy, saying, Adonai, even the demons are subject to us in your name. He said to them, I saw Satan having fallen like lightning from heaven. Behold, I give you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. Nothing will in any way hurt you. Nevertheless, don't rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Listen to that. Okay? Again, the seed of Elohim, or Israel. When I say the seed of Elohim, I want y'all to start thinking Israel. When I say Israel, I want y'all to think the seed of Elohim, because that's who we are. Why? Because we possess the seed, which we now understand to be what? The Word. Okay. In Revelation chapter 20, verse 15, listen to what it says. It says, if anyone was not found written in the book of life, he was cast into the lake of fire. And in Revelation 21:27, it says, there will in no way enter into it anything profane, or one who causes an abomination or a lie. Think about this for a minute now, because we're talking about this woman that's riding this beast, right? Who is the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. It said that the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk by the wine of this woman's fornication. The same inhabitants of the earth who wandered after the beast. The same inhabitants of the earth that old serpent called the devil and Satan deceived, meaning they believe a lie as if it's the truth. So pay attention. There will in no way enter into it anything profane, or one who causes an abomination or a lie, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. You hear that? Let's move on. Verse 9, Revelation chapter 17. Here is the mind that has wisdom. See, whenever you talk about this wisdom, now what he's doing is to call back to what? when Moshe says, this is your wisdom, it's the Torah. In other words, you have to have a good foundation of his word. You see? Because in his word is wisdom. Listen to what he says. Now, I love this part, but watch how the angel interprets this for him. But we want to see some things as well. He says, the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Now, initially, the thought was Rome, because Rome is referred to as the city on 7 hills. And that is true. It is applicable to Rome as well. But let me read something for you. Now, this is coming from a website, and I was looking up some stuff. This website is rehabilitationrobotics.com, right? And it's under the 7 hills. It says, several substantial world cities lay claim to be built on 7 hills. It says, besides Jerusalem, so apparently Jerusalem lays claim to being on 7 hills as well. But listen to what it says. The 7-hilled sister cities. And every city that's about to be named sits on 7 hills, allegedly. I haven't did the background research to find out all of the different hills, but I just want y'all to pay attention. And you can all do some research and substantiate this for yourselves as well, as I believe you. Beshem Yahushua HaMashiach. Okay, listen to what it said. The 7-hilled sister cities are Rome, Mecca, Istanbul, Moscow, Tehran, Athens, and Babylon, ancient Babylon. So that's 7 different places that are said to be the 7-hilled sister cities, right? But here's another additional thought. Washington, D.C. is built on Capitol Hill, Meridian Hill, Floral Hills, Forest Hills, Hillbrook, Hillcrest, and Knox Hill. And I'm mentioning these only as food for thought. Okay? Food for thought. Because another thought that Albert gave in regard to that, in this context of the 7 hills, right, can also be a comparison now to what is known as the 7 continents. Okay, I'm going to read some information to you. It says, this is the most widely adopted model, and it classifies the following 7 continents. So you have Africa, Europe, Asia, North America, South America, Australia, and Antarctica, right? So, continent derives from the Latin terra continens. The term terra means land. Continents means, it comes from the present participle of the verb contineo, which, and it's a compound term. The term con means together, and teneo means I hold. So the meaning is therefore land held together or connected land. Okay? Originally, the term continent was applied to any area of land of any size not separated by water, including islands. Concurrently, ever since the times of ancient Greek mariners and philosophers, the world was separated into parts. These parts were initially Europe and Asia. With the subsequent addition of Africa and, in 1507, of the Americas. Only in the late 19th century, such parts of the earth came to be explicitly defined as continents. Today, continents are understood to be large, continuous, distinct masses of land, ideally, but not necessarily separated by expanses of water. No required minimum size to qualify as large or very large has been defined, nor the requisite degree of physical separation. Continents are therefore defined by convention rather than a strict criteria. The criteria used can be of geographical, historical, cultural, anthropological, political, or even of philosophical nature. Now, the reason I wanted to point this out is because it is interesting that humanity has made this decision to divide the world by these 7 continents. Now the Most High said this, here is wisdom. Why would this be wisdom? Because we're talking about a system that has control over the whole world. We're not just talking about Rome anymore. See? We're not just talking about a particular area of the world. We're talking about a system that rules the entire globe. Keep that in mind. Let's go to chapter 17, Revelation, and pick up at verse 10. Now, again, he said, he explained it now. Now what he's going to show is the vastness of the word. Listen to what he says next. He says, they are 7 kings. First he said that the 7 heads represent 7 hills upon which this woman is sitting, right? Listen to what he says here. 5 have fallen. So what is he talking about? Because remember, when we started looking at the world ruling empires, we looked at it from the perspective of Nebuchadnezzar, who had the thought. Excuse me. And what was going to take place after him. It was not including what took place before him. So when you lay it out, I'm going to write these on the board for you. Okay? You had Egypt, which was a power. You had Assyria. Then, with Babylon, at the point from Nebuchadnezzar, then you had the Medo-Persians. Then you had Greece. And listen to what he says. Verse 10, he says, they are 7 kings. It says 5 have fallen. So Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece, those are the 5 that are fallen, right? It says the one is. So at that time, Rome was in power. Okay? Now he's talking about the 7 heads. And then it says, the other has not come. Okay? The other has not come. All right. Now, when he comes, he must continue a little while. So let's go back now. Let's go back to Daniel chapter 2 and verse 32. And let's listen to what it says here. It says, and we're going to pick up from Babylon, because that's where Nebuchadnezzar's question starts from himself. As for this image, its head was of fine gold, that represented Babylon. Its breast and its arms of silver, that was the Medo-Persia. Its belly and its thighs of brass, that was Greece. Its legs of iron, that was Rome. But then it said its feet, part of iron and part of clay. That's something else. That's the part that has not yet come. But it was represented, but it has not yet come. Okay? Let's go to Revelation chapter 13 and verse 1. It says, then I stood on the sand of the sea. I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads. So it's the same beast, right? 7 heads. We drop down to verse 3. It says, one of his heads looked like it had been wounded fatally. His fatal wound was healed. This is the 7th. Now you're talking about what people are going to refer to as a revival. Okay? Now, when we think about that, don't focus so much on Rome like a lot of people do. You're talking about the world. You're talking about the impact of the world. And when it's talking about a revival, it's not like everybody is going to become, you know, Rome. No, 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 no. It's bigger than that. We're going to see some things. He says, verse 3 again. One of his heads looked like it had been wounded fatally. His fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled at the beast. Listen to what he said. The whole earth marveled at the beast, right? Now let's drop down to verse 14. Revelation chapter 13, verse 14. This is what it said. And it's talking about the second beast, or that again, the little horn. He deceives people who dwell on the earth because of the signs he was granted to do in front of the beast, saying to those who dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast who had the sword, wound, and lived. So that's tying back into what this little horn was going to do as far as making this image. See, this is still something that was yet to come. Okay? Now, what this passage is substantiating, right? When you get whether it's Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, let me just touch on this right now since we're right here. When it comes to these different people, right? People like to say like the Edomites or Esau. It doesn't make a difference. You got two groups of people. Israel represents the Most High. Edomites represent the seed of the serpent. Egyptians represent the seed of the serpent. Amalekites represent the seed of the serpent, etc., etc., etc. Babylon, Greece, Rome, they all represent the seed of the serpent. So it doesn't make a difference what the classification is. If you're not Israel, and I have to say this so that people won't go off here and go off there. I'm not making it about biologically descended from Israel. That's not what it's about. Because what we've also seen when we dealt with who is Israel, some of the biological descendants will not be saved. Hold up, brother. The word say all Israel will be saved. Well, we discussed that. All Israel simply means those who are obedient to the Torah and who have accepted Yahushua as their Messiah. It does not mean just because you came through the loins of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that you're guaranteed salvation. That is not what he's talking about. Because they rejected the Messiah. They rejected the salvation. And how do we substantiate that? Because you had Israel die in the wilderness. How many times throughout the course of history have we seen examples of Israel dying? Why? Because they were disobedient. That's why. As if all Israel was going to automatically become righteous. No, they are not. Some going to return, but not all. And that's the truth about it. But anyway, moving along. Okay. Point being, what this is showing, you got one system. Even though it's manifested in all these different kingdoms, right? You have one system. All right? Do this when you get a chance. Look at like what we have on the board right now. If you look at all of the pantheons, whether it be the Egyptian pantheon, the Assyrian pantheon, the Babylonian, or the Sumerian pantheon, etc., you put them side by side. And what you're going to find is that they all have a similar structure. Okay? First and foremost, they all are polytheistic. And there's a reason for that, which we'll touch on that another time. But they are polytheistic. And one, for example, who is known as in Greece as Zeus is known in Rome as Jupiter. So Egypt has a similar deity under another name. Likewise does Assyria, likewise does Babylon. So this is all the same system. But it's just being represented by different people, different languages, different culture, but it's all the same system. Keep that in mind. I'm not going to get too far into that, but I'm just giving you, once again, food for thought. All right, moving along. Revelation chapter 17, starting at verse 12. The 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet. So he's looking forward now. Remember when Daniel saw the 10 kings or the 10 horns and 3 of us plucked up. He saw something that happened at that time. But you're seeing a steady revelation, and these horns have actually changed. Now you're talking about 10 that haven't even come to power yet. The 10 before, that represented something different, but it's still 10. And what's the significance of the 10? And this is just, again, food for thought. Food for thought. Verse 12 again. The 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. These have one mind. Think about that. And they give their power and authority to the beast. These will war against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them. So you're talking about a system that is going to be in place at the return of Messiah. Do you understand what's being said here? What we just saw, what we've already went through, when the stone was cut out and it hit the toes, the 10 toes of that image that Nebuchadnezzar saw. When the Ancient of Days, or the Son of Man, came after the fourth beast of Daniel's vision, representing the Messiah again. And here is the exact same testimony that this power is going to be in existence until the return of the Messiah. When people think about Israel being put in their rightful place, that does not occur until the return of Messiah. That's it. It's not happening right now. It's when the Mashiach returns that all things are going to be set in order, and Israel will be put in their rightful place. But that's another lesson. But let's keep it moving. Again, verse 14. These will war against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him are called and chosen and faithful. He said to me, the waters which you saw, where the harlot sits, now listen to this, are peoples, multitudes, nations, languages. You're talking about the world system. You're talking about the entire world system. Listen to this again. People, multitude, nations, languages. You're talking about every human being on this planet. Daniel 2:39. After you, another kingdom will arise that is inferior to you, and another third kingdom of brass, which will rule over all the earth. How has Greece impacted the world? You know, I saw an interesting video the other day. And I don't like to go off on these types of tangents, but I think it would be important for right here. And somebody simply asked a question, you know, in regard to the HBCUs and why they represent themselves by Greek letters. Just food for thought. Daniel chapter 7 verse 6. It says, after this I saw, and behold, another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Again, this is the Grecian, or the empire or kingdom of Greece. Revelation 12:9 again. The great dragon was thrown down, the old serpent who was called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Revelation chapter 13 verses 3 and 4, it says, and the whole earth marveled at the beast. They worshiped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast. Listen to this. Talking about the world. Now what we know for certain is that the whole world is not all worshiping the same way. They're not. But I tell you what they are working towards. They are working towards coexist. They are working towards tolerance. He that has an ear. It's not about everybody being in this cookie cutter mold and doing the exact same thing. It's not about that. Verse 16. The 10 horns which you saw and the beast, these will hate the harlot. Listen to this. See this? If humanity is the victim